maybe.
Oh,
yes,
my
sir!
goodness.
Is it his time?
Country Club in Atlanta, Georgia. On the mantel, in the lounge, are golf's 4 greatest trophies, earned in a single year by one man. The famous Grand Slam year of Bobby Jones. Today, a successful lawyer and businessman, Jones is still a guiding factor in American golf.
Golf is a wonderful game, and those of us who've been devoted to it all our lives are eager to bring it to more people. And we feel that the most important factor in popularizing the game is to bring about an improvement in teaching methods in order to shorten and make less painful the learning period. Shortly after the turn of the century, there came to this country a great many fine golfers from England and Scotland, and they were our teachers. Many of them were good, some of them not so good. But the thing was that they all taught according to their individual ideas. Now, several years ago, the PGA formed a teaching committee. And for those several years, that teaching committee has been gathering and correlating ideas of the best professionals in the country as to the best method of teaching golf. The film that you are about to see is the first fruit of that research. Our earlier teachers were handicapped because until the advent of motion pictures, none of them could be very sure how they did play golf. With the help of modern photographic science, members of the PGA teaching committee are now getting a new look at the golf swing. Thanks to such inventions as a strobe camera, they are able to stop motion, study body position, observe the action of the club face on the ball. They are trying to put their finger on that elusive quality of the golf swing called rhythm. More than 3,000 PGA members have been asked questions like, what do you know about the golf swing? How do you teach it? And the 50 or so players who earn their livings in tournament play have been asked, what's the real secret of scoring? How do you practice? What are your most common difficulties? Many of the answers are in this film. Remembering the old gag about the proof of the pudding, the people who will have to use this information are the teaching professionals. Therefore, I've asked the president of the PGA, Horton Smith, to be with me. Horton, we've learned a lot about the golf swing in the past 30 years, but I take it that this present effort is directed specifically at the relationship between teacher and learner. What do you think? Can this information be put to practical use?
Yes, indeed, Bob. It can and has been for some time, and with results that are gratifying to both the pupil and teacher.
Now, how about the so-called average golfer, the man or woman who's been playing for years? What can all this mean to such a player?
With that player, our big problem is to prevent him from practicing and grooving his own mistakes. He needs supervision just as much as any athlete. And with the ability of the modern professional to quickly spot trouble, he can usually get that player back on the road to improvement fairly quickly.
Well, Horton, exactly how would a professional go about improving a player's game?
I'd like to have you see a typical professional at work with a group of his members. He's Pat Abbott. Watch how he puts our information to work.
Because when you break this game down to its basic fundamentals, it becomes a remarkably simple game. You see, the only thing you ever have to do in this game is just hit the ball as far as possible, right straight toward the hole. Now, there are only 2 conceivable things that can control the direction in which a golf ball will fly. For instance, if I want to hit the ball right straight at you, the club face must move like this, not like this or like this. Now, conceding for the moment that we can do this, that we can move the club straight, the only thing that could be wrong now would lie in the club face itself. In other words, at the moment of impact, this club face must be squared to the intended line of flight. The entire theory of the golf swing, then, is to deliver the club head to the ball in a squared position along the intended line of flight at as high a rate of speed as possible. So every part of your golf swing is to accomplish those three things: square, straight, and fast. So now let's take a look at a few of the game's greatest swingers and see if we can find the fundamentals that assure these three things. Well, Doc, would you handle those lights for me, please? When we look at these swings quickly like this, they all look different, don't they? Yet when we look closer, we find they are all the same in certain basic fundamentals. The research of the PGA discovered these similarities in the golf laboratory. Here, by scientific analysis, they are discovering swing patterns adaptable to all golfers. This, of course, is Sam Snead. Let's slow that down now and study him as the experts did. His swing actually starts a step or two back from the ball, where he begins to make his physical and mental preparation for the shot. Naturally, his first concern must be with the grip. In all good grips, the palms face each other at right angles to the intended line of flight. The left-hand grip is with the fingers and palm, and is so placed on the club that the V formed by the thumb and forefinger points to the right of his chin. The club is kept firmly in place between the last 2 or 3 fingers and the heel of the hand. Snead's own check on the position of his left hand is that 3 knuckles should be visible in the address position. The right palm fits over the left thumb, so the inverted V again runs to the right of his chin. You'll notice he uses the standard Varden or overlapping grip. And now normally this is the best grip for the average player. But let me caution you that it may not be exactly the right grip for you. As you will see, adjustments must be made in all phases of the swing to fit individual needs. Now, stance and ball placement are equally important. As Snead takes his stance, his feet are spread approximately the width of his shoulders, with his toes pointed slightly outward. The ball is lined up opposite his left heel. See that preliminary waggle? That's part of the second key step in his preparation. It breaks the tension and helps his mind and body set the rhythm of his swing. Now, that waggle should be part of your swing, too. But don't overdo it. 2 or 3 should be plenty. More than that, and when you build tension instead of breaking it. Now, we've taken Sam's swing, slowed it down, and stopped it occasionally to help you to study it. After the waggle, his swing starts with a slight forward press. Watch it. Did you see it? Here it is again. A press with the hands, a faint flexing of the right knee, and a turn of the hips. Now, everything starts back together in a one-piece swing with the left side in control. As the swing starts, hips, shoulders, and left knee move together. And notice those wrists. Their position doesn't change until they are waist high. Now they've started to break. They'll continue that bending action throughout the backswing, becoming fully cocked at the top of the swing. The grip is still as firm on the club as it was at the address position. Here is a critical position in the swing. Left arm fully extended, body fully turned. His head has rotated during the backswing, but hasn't changed position. On the downswing, watch the left side stay in control. The left heel starts to return to the ground, hips and shoulders start to unwind together, and the right knee starts to point at the ball. See that left side control? The wrists stay cocked until the arms are almost into the striking zone, until it seems almost too late. At impact, Snead's arms are fully extended, weight driving off his right toe, hips slightly ahead of the hands, shoulders squared, and his head still in that unchanged position. Notice Snead doesn't hit at the ball. Rather, the swing seems to go through the ball, bringing about a smooth follow-through. And that was Sam Snead's swing. Just one of the many great ones that incorporate these fundamentals we've been talking about. Now, you can't duplicate it exactly, and you shouldn't try. Your golf swing is as individual as your fingerprints. But in that swing are 5 points you should try to duplicate because they're part of every successful swing I've ever seen. And here they are. Thanks, Doc. The address, stance and waggle, one-piece swing with left side control, delayed wrist action, and pivot and balance. Now, first is the address. Let's see how Cary Middlecoff handles it. Remember, while this happens before you actually start swinging, it's a basic part of the swing. Now, as Middlecoff takes that comfortable stance of his, arms extended, knees slightly bent, well, here's what he looks like from behind. No rigidity at all in the knee position. Looking, in fact, as if he were almost ready to sit down. And from this position, he's able to take a smooth, easy swing. Now, I know you've seen this golfer. Ready to swing with arms and knees stiff as ramrods. From behind, you can see he's far from relaxed. Watch him. Something on, isn't there? Compare him with Middlecoff and see how important that address is. Middlecoff swings back smoothly again. But look at our friend. He turned his shoulders back into position, but with those stiff knees, he couldn't rotate his hips. The only way he can get the club swinging is with his shoulders. So his swing cuts across the intended line of flight, and he gets a slice. That was fundamental number 1, the address. Now let's watch fundamental number 2, the stance and waggle. Here's Lloyd Mangrum. Lloyd addresses the ball, then lifts his club and makes a couple of passes across the ball. His whole body seems to settle into position. Let's see that again, a little slower. This may seem unnecessary, but the best golfers in the world can't stand on a tee without tension. What Lloyd is doing is breaking up that tension and preventing any tendency to freeze over the ball. He's also establishing the rhythm and tempo the swing will adopt. Now our friend, having learned the right address, stands up there with that same tension. Let's compare that with the pro. While Mangrum breaks up his tensions, our friend is storing them up, and they all show up in his first backswing motion. He breaks his wrists abruptly, which immediately eliminates all possibility of smoothness. Our friend's left arm ends up in a crooked position around his neck. Ow, and look at that flying right elbow. In addition, his body turn is restricted, so his downswing is again across the intended line of flight, and again he gets golf standard disease, the slice. That's fundamental number 2, the preliminary waggle. Number 3 is that one-piece swing with left side control. Watch Lawson a little as he puts the swing into motion with a slight forward press. A perceptible movement of hands, hips, and right knee. Here it is in close-up. A slight but tremendously important motion. And from there, his swing is a single powerful movement controlled by the left side. To see how important that left side is, let's forget he has a left side at all. It's obvious that the part the right side plays is only a supporting one until the club reaches the hitting zone. At this point, the right side explodes into action. But let's see the left side. The left side limits the length of the swing and also leads the downswing. There is the authority in the swing. It's obvious, isn't it? Now, you've seen swings that look like this. Did you catch the flaw? At the start, he looks good. His arms are fully extended. But now, look. His hips have not moved with his hands, and his left heel has stayed flat on the ground. As his wrists start to break, the hips try to catch up, and look what happens to the arc of his swing. Flattens out. From this position, there's only one way for him to try to get back on the track. He'll undoubtedly loop the club head in an effort to get back on the proper plane. And 10 to 1, he'll cut across the intended line of flight. So that's the third fundamental, the one-piece swing with left side control. And here's the next, delayed wrist action. I doubt if anyone delays the uncocking of the wrists on the downswing longer than Ben Hogan. Here's Ben at the top of his backswing. Notice that as his hips and shoulders start the downswing, he seems almost to be driving the grip end of the club toward the ball. If your head position remains unchanged, it is impossible for you to delay this uncocking of your wrist too long. The accelerating weight of your club head will force your wrist to uncock in ample time. Now our friend reaches the top of his backswing properly, but not quite a Hogan swing, is it? Let's compare him with Ben. Ben starts that slow, gradual pull from the left heel to the hips to the shoulders. But our boy starts by uncocking his wrists. As a result, at this point, his hands are throwing the club in a casting movement. By the time his downswing is well underway, he has lost all the value of his wrist action. Whereas Hogan is holding his back for the final instant when it is most important. So delay the breaking of those wrists, both on the backswing and the downswing. Fundamental number 4. Now, fifth and last, pivot and balance. Lou Worsham is as firm as a rock throughout his swing, thanks to fine leg action and a full pivot. Now, to a great extent, the shifting of weight in a golf swing is an optical and physical illusion. As we see Worsham at the top of the backswing here, the right foot is supporting more of his weight than the left. Now, the weight shifts to the left foot as he swings through, but a great deal of this is appearance rather than fact. This illusion is created by the turning of the hips, which appears to be a lateral shifting of the hips. Now, what actually happens can best be seen from directly above Worsham. His body is merely rotating around an axis which runs down his spine. So get the idea out of your heads right now that you should make a conscious effort to shift your weight from foot to foot. Rather, learn to pivot, and you will feel your weight shifting automatically. Here's how the pivot works. As his hips and shoulders begin this pivoting action, his left foot rolls and the heel rises off the ground. This results in his left knee pointing to a position behind the ball. His right knee remains firm, but not locked. At the top of his backswing, this rotating action of the torso reverses. Now the left heel returns to the ground, pulling the hips and shoulders as it does. Now the right heel comes off the ground, and his right knee will point to a position in front of the ball. At the finish of the swing, the right knee will be pointing down the intended line of flight. Now, you've often seen this kind of swing, and the results it produces. Let's see what's wrong. As he moves to the top of his backswing, there is little attempt to pivot and a failure to move his feet and knees. Then, when he starts his downswing, he falls back on his right foot. So his body is moving away from the direction of the swing, generally losing his balance after impact. Now, another thing to remember is not to shift to the right in the backswing. This results in an overshift. Here he will lose his balance because the axis of his swing is too far behind the ball. Well, there are the 5 fundamentals of all sound swings. Any questions?
It's pretty clear, but how does it work for me? I'm not built like Sam Snead. I couldn't possibly swing the way he does.
Well, look, Mr. Miller, don't get the idea that in order to be an expert golfer, you have to be a carbon copy of a star player. You know, the physical characteristics of every player will affect his swing. The problem is to turn those characteristics to your advantage. Do you really think that your stoutness is a handicap to your golf game?
Well, sure. I can't swing like the tournament pros.
Can't you? Let's take a look at Porky Oliver. There he is. Ed admits to 230 pounds, but watch his swing. He not only follows the 5 fundamentals, he puts those pounds to work for him, too. Let's watch how he does it. The basic limitation of the stout man is not only in his waistline, but also in his chest. His chest is thick and he can't get his hands as high as is normal. Oliver corrects this tendency to swing flatly by keeping his swing as upright as possible, and though this shortens it, he's able to generate great power by pivoting his weight back through the ball, leading his hands and thus increasing their momentum. Now here, we are looking at the difference between the top flight player and the average player with this characteristic. Note that Oliver has overcome a great deal of that tendency to swing the club flat, while Mr. Miller is almost in a baseball stance at the top of his backswing. To correct this, he must constantly try to raise the plane of his swing and move that weight ahead of the hands. So that's what you and I are going to work on when we get on the practice tee. Overcoming flatness of the swing and turning that bulk ahead of your hands.
Well, how about me, Pat? My problem is just the opposite. I'm built like a 2-iron. Where do I get my power?
Well, Mr. Harris, just because you like size and power doesn't mean that you can't hit a long ball. Look at this little golfer. You guessed it. It's Jerry Barber, probably the smallest player in tournament golf. Now, you'll note he does 3 things. He widens his swing to the full extent of his arms. He lengthens the swing to the limit of his balance. And he delays the uncocking of his wrists as long as any player in the game. That's how he gets distance in spite of his weight. Now, let's put you in the picture, Mr. Harris, and see the difference between your technique and Jerry Barber's. Now, at the top of your backswing, your club is in a horizontal position, while Barber passes this point by almost a foot. Now, coming down, Barber's hands remain in a fully cocked position to a point where it seems almost impossible to bring them into play in time. But watch them explode into action at this point. And you can do that too. Reach further, swing back further, and delay the wrist action longer. We'll work on that when we get on the tee.
Well, I'm not heavy either. But when I try to lengthen my swing, I lose my balance. At 6'4", you know I'm no picture of dexterity and grace out there.
No? We've got another real good tournament player here. Let's see if he can help you, Mr. Coburn. Cary Middlecoff is tall, but he's won a lot of tournaments. Notice the great width of his arc. Only a tall man can swing in that radius. However, since the major problem of you tall men is balance, watch how he shortens his backswing. See where he stops? Not even a horizontal position. And as he swings through, Middlecoff makes a serious effort to avoid looseness in his swing. Now that we are looking at both Cary and Mr. Coburn, we become more aware of this balance problem and how a long, loose swing aggravates it. In order to keep balance, the tall man must simply shorten the distance the club head travels. He usually widens his stance and must constantly work for smoothness. These things are easily developed, and we're soon going to apply them to you.
Well, Pat, when you get to my age, it isn't a question of getting better. It's a question of staying as good as you are right now.
Well, Mr. Davis, age is the one problem that can't be turned to our advantage so easily. The first thing to realize as age approaches is that our strength is limited. So we must improve accuracy as we lose distance. Now, here's a man who seems to have this one licked. It's the 1908 National Open champion, Freddie McLeod. On his 72nd birthday, he shot his age. You know, when Freddie swings, there's no attempt to overpower the ball. Instead, he shortens his backswing, concentrates on smoothness, and seems to be consciously bringing the club head to the ball in an absolutely square position. That's Freddie's answer to age. Look at the difference. Mr. Davis is still trying to hit like a 30-year-old man. Rather than gaining distance with that added effort, Mr. Davis, you'll find you're getting even less distance than you're entitled to. All too many older men try to swing like youngsters. When we get out on that golf course, we're going to try to develop smoothness in your long game And we're going to do a lot more work on your short game.
I'm beginning to feel like a fifth wheel around here, Pat. Have you got another set of fundamentals for the girls?
No, Mrs. Lindsay. All the principles we've discussed today apply to women's swings as well as men's. But we do have to find a way to overcome their natural shortage of strength. Now look at this young lady. Louise Suggs is small, even for a woman. But she won the Women's National Open, and twice she took the National Amateur Championship. And the first thing you notice about her swing is its length. To get that length, she uses far more body turn than the average man, and her wrist action is not as restricted as in a man's swing. At the top of her swing, however, she doesn't lose control of the club, the most common fault of the woman player. Now, how does Mrs. Lindsay's swing compare? When we look at her, we find that in an effort to lengthen it, she let go with the back of the left hand and lost control of the club itself. So the position of the club face is always uncertain. How many women have you seen completely collapse the left side of the top of the backswing like this? Our assignment, Mrs. Lindsay, will be to lengthen your swing without losing control. Well, let's call it a day for now, huh? When we get together on the practice tee, we'll put what we've learned today to real good use.
What a difference modern methods can make. That fella had more sound dope at his fingertips than professionals used to have in a whole library.
That's true, but there's a danger in it, because some golfers feel if they get all that in their heads, that they've got the game licked.
I know. We've all seen a lot of armchair golfers who know exactly what to do, but are never quite able to do it. Now, what is the PGA doing about that problem?
We're trying to get across the idea in golf, as in every other sport, that the players must first learn the fundamentals, then practice. But it should be supervised practice. The golfer must make certain that it's the fundamentals and not the faults that are becoming habits.
All right, Horton, now here's another angle. After your player acquires a good swing and gets to hitting the ball pretty well, he's going to want to whittle down his score, to learn to save strokes by what we call maneuvering. What are you telling him about that?
Well, Bob, that same professional we just saw has a technique that I like.
Well, you can whittle those strokes off one way or another, Mr. Walton, but the acknowledged experts are the tournament players. I have some of their techniques here in this film. You'll get some ideas from it. But first, I think we ought to understand the difference between tournament players and you.
Well, they're better than I am, that's for sure.
And why are they better? Because with them, golf is a job, and they work at it. Work hard. The golf is fun as you play it. It's the most wonderful sport in the world, a lifetime's fun. But golf as a profession, as these golfers play it, is work. Hour after hour, 6 hours a day frequently, they stand out there practicing a single shot. That's not fun, but it's their job. And when they go out on the course, their shots are perfected. Well, let's learn from their perfection. Here's Lloyd Mangrum again. Certainly he ought to be able to show us a few stroke-saving secrets. We'll keep an eye on him. And this... Gee, I wish I could see his face. Well, that's all right, Ben. I think he belongs in this film. Well, I should have guessed. Oh, Bob. Hey, Bob. You've forgotten to... Hold it, Bob. You haven't... Oh, well. Enough of this foolishness. Let's see what Hogan's drive left him for a second shot. He's about 280 yards down the fairway. Look out, Ben! Gosh, somebody outdrove Hogan by 30 yards. A kid in shorts yet. Hogan is more than 200 yards from the green. Obviously a fairway wood. Now here's how Ben handles this shot in slow motion. Notice the ball is played slightly inside his left heel. From this position, he can hit the ball on the downswing, forcing it up and out of the grass. Now on another hole, Mangrum finds himself about 175 yards off the green and selects a 4-iron. Let's watch how he makes the shot. plays the ball from inside his left heel, and of course the shorter shaft brings him closer to the ball. Once again, there is no change in the basic swing, except that it is slightly shorter. And note too, there is no real effort to get the ball up. He hits down, trusting the loft of the club to lift the ball. Byron Nelson is faced with a full 7-iron shot, a distance of 140 yards. Let's study his shot. He takes a slightly open stance, his left foot withdrawn from the line parallel to the intended line of flight. This is called the accuracy stance. With this single exception, there is no basic change from our standard swing. Now, let's go back to another hole. Here, Ben has a 75-yard approach to the green. He selects a wedge, planning to play a full pitch shot. And here's the result. Not seeking power, but accuracy, he restricts the length of his swing. The ball is hit with a downward blow, and this gives it backspin. Nelson, with the same shot, but no bunkers in the way, decides on a pitch and run. He uses a 7-iron where Hogan used a wedge, and that's the only important difference between the two shots. Same restricted swing, striking the ball a descending blow, and a restricted follow-through. To the average golfer, this is the most frightening of all golf shots. Now, the wedge is not designed to hit the ball, but works with the sliding action under the ball. Mangrum addresses the ball with his club face in an open position. He picks the club abruptly away from the ball with his hands. Cutting across the ball, a complete follow-through is vital to this shot. If the ball is buried in the sand, he would have to make one change to effect the full explosion shot. He'd close the club face and hit more directly on the line rather than cutting across it. Now watch the difference between a cut shot above and an explosion below. Not hard to see how they got their names, is it? Here's PGA champ Walter Burkemo. His ball is only a few feet off the edge of the putting surface. Here, using a 5-iron, he'll try to get the ball within one putt distance of the hole. Here's the result. Whoops! Well, one putt or less. Let's see how he did it. He grips down on the club to increase both accuracy and comfort. He stands with his feet close together, his weight slightly toward the left foot. His stroke is short and firm with practically no wrist action. The length of his follow-through is about the same as his backswing. Now, here's the most important shot in golf, the putt. There are many styles of putting among the champions, all of them good. But like the swing, all good putting styles observe certain basic rules. In the stance, the eyes are almost directly over the ball. This is the effective position to see the line and helps anchor the head. The hands are exactly squared to the hole, and like the blade, move along the intended line. The blade is kept close to the ground throughout the stroke. Stances vary greatly, but generally the ball is played off the left toe. Here again, rhythm is the key to success.
Horton, that's a job that you and your entire organization can be very proud of. Anything that can shorten the learning period and make golf more pleasant is going to be mighty good news to all the golfers and potential golfers in this country.
Thanks, Bob. That's a wonderful tribute, but the PGA is only one of many fine organizations that are dedicated to advancing the game of golf.
Either the game goes forward or the game goes backward, and I'm happy to see that it's going forward all the time.
And who knows more of golf's forward progress than this man who played it so keenly, loves it so well, and contributes so much to it. In his experience, he has seen golf grow to America's #1 participant outdoor sport, and he understands clearly the factors that made it grow. One of those growth factors, National Golf Day, he values highly, because it is golf's one program in which all golfers annually make their personal contribution to the game that gives them so much pleasure.
These awards represent to me golf's most successful effort to continue its own progress. It all started several years ago when Life magazine and the Professional Golfers Association, in cooperation with the United States Golf Association, sponsored the first National Golf Day. This was a day when every golfer in the country got a chance to compete with his regular handicap against the current national champion. Every golfer paid $1 to play. They all had a lot of fun, and those who beat the champion got an award like this. But the day was of even greater importance. Those dollars, all of them, without any deduction for expenses of promotion or administration, were used to establish the National Golf Fund. Now, of course, National Golf Day has become a regular date on America's golf calendar, and each year more and more golfers compete for these awards. This is a one day each year when golfers all over the country can get together to do something for the game and for many worthwhile humanitarian causes. National Golf Fund has become a permanent institution. The money golfers have put into the fund has done a great deal of good.
The USO received much of it. So your participation in National Golf Day has meant many hours of recreation for servicemen away from home in many parts of the world. The work of the Red Cross is aided by your contribution to the National Golf Fund, helping to maintain an invaluable reserve strength for emergencies and the continuing service to people in need. Some of your money has gone to help young people in golf. Scholarships for caddies, for instance. Hundreds of young golfers are getting a college education through caddy scholarships supported by the National Golf Fund. Other youngsters get their first taste of tournament play with the help of the fund, because some of the money has been used to help the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce stage its junior tournament, the biggest golf tournament in the world. And golf now means active recreation to many handicapped persons, blind and otherwise disabled, because National Golf Fund money has been used to help teach them the game.
A sizable amount of the money, too, has been spent on turf research to find better grasses for golf courses and to develop better and more efficient means of upkeep. Many worthwhile efforts have benefited from the use of money of the fund. In fact, if it helps golf and needs help, any organization may turn to the National Golf Fund for assistance. That's why I think National Golf Day is a very fine thing for the game we all love. Each of us should count it a privilege to be able to pay our dollar to support golf and these worthy causes, and at the same time have some fun playing against the current champion. Ben Hogan said it well a few years ago.
I think every golfer in the United States is absolutely obligated to play in this National Golf Day, only because it's going to benefit him and golf.
That's the kind of spirit that keeps golf going ahead. So check National Golf Day on your calendar and keep them in the fairway.
Maybe. Oh, yes, my sir! Goodness.
Is it his time?